Episode number 101. 101, The Red King Eye. Cain saw that lightning claw coming toward him and knew what it meant. He could not back down now, since the Red Ring's self-destruction could not be stopped, but if he carried on with his attack, there was no way he could survive. Time froze for Cain at that moment as he faced that decision. He would have to pay the ultimate price if he wanted to kill the Atrox and save his friends. A smile formed on Cain's face as he pushed forward and connected his left fist to the Atrox's chest, right on top of this one's heart. The second he did that, blood splattered all over his face. Cain's eyes widened as he felt that blood because it was not his. A sense of utter dread overflowed his heart as he looked to the side and saw a scene that would be forever engraved in his soul. Beals used her body to stop the Atrox's claw. The lightning blade pierced her chest, leaving what one could only assume to be a lethal wound.
NOO. Boom.
Cain's shout did not last long as the explosion of the red ring happened the next instant, sending everybody flying away. Flames spread throughout the forest due to the firepower unleashed by the red ring's explosion. The Atrox landed almost 200 meters away, and there was a bloody hole in the center of his chest, while burn marks covered the rest of the body. On the human side, things were a little better. Levi had crashed against many boulders on his path, repeatedly hitting his head, so he was unconscious. Cain was still conscious, but there was an immense agony on his face since the explosion had destroyed his left arm. However, while the pain was immense, Cain couldn't care less. He rose from the ground and looked at the surroundings until he found her.
Beals.
Cain shouted as he saw Beals lying in a pool of her own blood a few meters away from him. Moving his body was hard, but nothing could stop him from reaching her side. When Cain finally got next to Beals and saw her wounds, the feeling of dread grew even stronger. The Atrox's lightning blade had pierced her body entirely, and he could see some of her vital organs.
It is okay.
Cain trembled as he heard Beals utter those words and could feel the peace in her expression. She understood what would happen and had no regrets.
Stop talking, you will be fine.
The fact that Beals came to peace with what would happen did not mean Cain felt the same about it. He attempted to put pressure on the wounds, but the help something like that could provide for such a massive injury was null.
System, scan her and find a way to save her life.
Cain's mind was so chaotic that he even mentioned the absolute life form system out loud. Scanning target. Scan completed. Target has suffered massive internal injuries. The spine is severed, and lightning has scorched both lungs. The heart also sustained a deep laceration, generating massive internal bleeding. Generating medical procedures. No medical procedures are capable of treating her wounds. Target's chances of survival are 0%.
What? That cannot be right. Do it again.
Cain shouted with rage as he saw the analysis of the absolute life form system. Deep down, he knew those wounds were lethal, but he could not accept that things would end like this. Beals did not understand with whom Cain was talking, and as her last breath came closer, something changed in her eyes. A feeling of aloofness emerged as if her condition mattered little. She no longer showed calm in the face of death, since now it seemed that death did not matter to her. Such a drastic change in Beals would have shocked Cain if he had noticed it, but his mind was so wild and frantic that he missed it. Beals' aloofness faded when she focused on the man that fiercely looked for a way to save her life. She could not help but show a tender smile. Cain was shouting to the absolute life form system to find a way to save her when he felt a hand touching his face. He looked down and saw Beals' lovely smile.
I wish we had more time together.
As he heard those words, Cain felt something squeezing his heart and saw Beals' hand falling to the ground without strength. Target vital signs are null. The target is dead.
No, 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 Snow.
Cain roared as a wild burst of astral wave emerged from his body, while rage and frustration overwhelmed his heart. However, that did not last long as utter sadness replaced those feelings, and he gently brought Beals' body into his embrace.
Why did I have to lose her like this?
Cain began to cry as a sense of total loss filled his heart. Seeing her like that made him feel he had lost something very important. Even if he never said it out loud, the way Cain looked at Beals was not that of simple friends. She was brave, beautiful, smart, and funny, so it was not odd for emotions like those to emerge in his heart. However, Kane's past experiences made him avoid that topic. He always thought they would have more time and allow things to happen naturally instead of forcing it. Unfortunately, it was too late now, and he lost that chance forever. Kane's mind was in complete chaos, but the red light in his eyes that symbolized the strength of his willpower only kept growing stronger. It is not odd for a life form's willpower to rise after overcoming a traumatic event, but Kane clearly was not handling Beale's death well. Besides, the red light in his eyes was not only growing more potent, but also colder. Warning, warning, an unknown force is acting over Vessel's willpower. Regain focus immediately before a change in the ego happens. Apex spoke less than a second after the warning from the absolute life form system echoed inside Kane's mind. For the first time, the system's spirit lost his composed tone of voice, making it clear just how worried he was.
Brat, focus. Do not let pain and sorrow overcome your mind. Allow yourself to grieve, but do not lose yourself in it. If you don't get your ego under control, something catastrophic will happen.
Apex's voice carried the urgency of the situation, but Kane's mind was in such a chaotic state that he did not hear anything. He was all alone with his thoughts.
Wise.
Kane's tears fall on Beale's face, making the sadness on this one only grow stronger.
Why does being weak have to hurt so much?
The red light in Kane's eyes grew even stronger as he uttered those words, as did the coldness in these ones.
Wise.
Kane shouted that word with a voice full of grief as the red light on his eyes reached its zenith, and he fell unconscious. Silence reigned in the forest for a moment before a mournful sound appeared.
Order.
A shriek of pain echoed as the Atrox wave champion began to rise from the ground. His condition was critical, to say the least, but he was still alive. The Atrox touched his chest, and as he focused on his rebirth heart, a look of horror and desperation emerged. The damage to his heart was so massive that it was essentially crippled, completely shattering his cultivation. He would grow weaker and weaker, and it would be a miracle if he still had any power by the next day. All his hard work would fade away, and the damage he endured was so severe that he would be crippled and confined to a bed for the rest of his life. That realization filled the Atrox with pure and immense hatred. His eyes focused on the man responsible, and he wanted nothing more than to rip this one to pieces. For a race that worshipped strength, living as crippled was no different than hell.
I wills kill you.
The Atrox roared as his wrath exploded. It took him a couple of seconds to reach the unconscious human, and he clenched his right fist, gathering in it what little strength he had left, before firing a punch with more than enough power to break a level 2 wave warrior's skull. Just as the Atrox punched toward Kane's skull, he opened his eyes. There was no more blasting light in them. Instead, his green pupils had turned red. That aesthetic change was meaningless compared with the intent that Kane's eyes now unleashed. Those eyes had a sense of ancientness and detachment, as if everything in this world was inconsequential. The ego capable of unleashing that intent did not belong to a 14-year-old boy. They belonged to an entity that once stood above all existence and reigned supreme. Those red eyes belonged to a king. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 102. 102 The Red King, II.
Boom.
A small blast echoed through the forest as the Atrox's punch connected against something. However, to his shock, his fist landed on the ground, and the man and woman vanished from his sight. What? Where did he go? The Atrox was shocked by the man's sudden disappearance and began looking through the surroundings frantically. He found the human 40 meters to his left and saw how this one left the woman's corpse on the ground before turning toward him. The Atrox wave champion had faced all types of monsters and been in the presence of incredible powerhouses across his life, but he could swear that he had never felt such a monstrous aura as the one in those red eyes. They did not belong to someone good or evil. Terms like those were too narrow to describe them, might. It was like a force of nature that destroyed everything in its path with no emotion whatsoever.
Who are you?
For the first time since the battle started, the Atrox wave champion asked a question, and it was meant to figure out the identity of the man he had been fighting the last 30 minutes. The aura and ego he felt in those red eyes did not belong to the young man full of heroism that entered the battlefield to save his friends. Cain did not answer the question and instead focused on his left arm. Everything beneath the shoulder was gone, and there was a massive hemorrhage. If he did not treat it soon, the blood loss would weaken him more and more until he passed out. Falling unconscious with a bleeding wound in a place like this would mean certain death, but Cain's eyes showed not even the slightest sign of worry. He simply slapped his left shoulder with his right palm, and something amazing happened. The muscles on the left shoulder contracted, sealing the wound and stopping the bleeding.
Impossible.
The Atrox Wave champion shouted in disbelief as he saw Cain's muscles acting like they had a life of their own. Although an early Wave champion was strong, it was far from enough to form part of an incursion into an enemy continent led by a god. The Atrox managed to secure that position due to his background, and the sole purpose of his journey to the Gaia continent was to push the electromagnetic force field that was his willpower to the late Wave champion level. His greatest goal was to enter the first realm of the ego eternal path of power, which is why he felt so much envy when he saw that a mere level 2 Wave warrior like Cain had already reached that level. Due to his family heritage, the Atrox Wave champion had a great knowledge of the first realm of the ego eternal path of power and knew it also went by the name of mind over body. The first realm granted incredible control over your emotions and granular domain over your wave, but that was just the beginning. Once you gain true mastery over that realm, you can attain supernatural control over your body to the point that you can command every organ with your mind. The Atrox Wave champion could accept that Cain had reached the first realm so young since he knew there were divine geniuses born with their ego eternal matrix activated since their birth. However, to command your body the way Cain did should be impossible for someone that just entered mind over body. Cain couldn't care less about the Atrox's state of mind and looked at the surroundings with curiosity. He took everything in, and flashes of understanding appeared from time to time. After a moment, he focused on the Atrox, making this one tremble.
Who are you?
It was the same question as before, but this time the one doing it was the human. They were just words, but the Atrox's eyes widened as he felt an invisible force crawl into his mind. Before he knew what was happening, his eyes lost focus.
My name is Sonar Chaerius, second son of Marquis Sila Chaerius.
After speaking those words, Sonar's eyes regained focus, and a sense of utter shock assaulted his soul. He did not understand what happened, but his mind was overwhelmed by the desire to answer that man's question. Cain focused on the Atrox Wave champion again, making dread appear in the face of this one.
Why are we fighting?
If before the Atrox Wave champion was suspicious, now he was sure that the person in front of him was not the young man from before. They might share the same body, but that was where their similarities ended. Unfortunately for Sonar, he did not have time to hypothesize what was happening, as his eyes lost focus again as he answered.
I came as part of an incursion into this continent. A fight left me badly wounded, which forced me to search for a place to hide and heal. My goal was to rest in the cavern beneath the toxic lake until I regained enough strength to escape, but 2 humans were already in it. I was about to kill that woman when you showed up and interfered.
Cain stared at the woman on the floor and the unconscious man a few hundred meters away from his location. There were no emotions in his eyes, and he looked at them like they were complete strangers. No, it was even worse. You would show some sympathy or at least interest for a wounded stranger from your race, but in Cain's eyes was complete apathy.
Who is the ruler of this world?
Sonar attempted to fight the compulsion, but it was futile, and in the end, he answered the question.
There is no one absolute ruler. The only one that came close enough to that level was Adam, the emperor of humankind.
As soon as Sonar's eyes regained their focus, an immense sense of shame and rage appeared in them. Those were his honest thoughts, but he could not believe he had just praised the emperor of humankind out loud.
Adam.
A sharp light appeared in Cain's eyes as he pronounced that name. It was impossible to say what thoughts emerged in his mind, but it was clear that the emperor of humankind caused an impression. Cain focused on the Atrox again. This time, he spoke with a tone of voice with much greater power.
Kill yourself.
The Atrox's eyes widened with sheer terror as he heard those words, and he felt the intent reach the deepest parts of his mind, trying to overwhelm his survival instincts. Sonar's right hand moved on its own, flashing toward his neck and almost piercing it, but he managed to use his left hand to stop it.
Alright.
The Atrox roared with rage and hatred, using everything he had to fight back against the idea planted in his mind that made him want to commit suicide. It took every iota of his willpower, but Sonar overcame the impulse and regained control over his body. Sonar's face was pale, and it was clear he was exhausted, but his eyes also showed immense resentment. Dying in battle was the most honorable ending for a member of the Atrox Immatus race, but killing yourself was the most dishonorable of all. Forcing him to end his own life showed just how little Kain thought of the Atrox Wave champion. Even now that Sonar managed to resist it, Kain's expression did not change. His eyes were utterly emotionless, as if the Atrox could do nothing that affected his mind. Kain saw the Atrox's burning desire to fight and that this one was ready to die. He simply took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Sonar saw that and knew this was the perfect chance to strike, but he did not move. Fear had already overwhelmed his heart despite overcoming the impulse to kill himself, and he did not dare launch the first punch. The state of the Atrox Wave champion's mind was similar to that of a mortal that did not dare to fight back when threatened with a knife or gun, as the fear of retaliation and death was too great.
Thumpy.
Sonar could not believe what he had just heard. Kain was more than 40 meters away from him, but he listened to this one's heartbeat.
Thumpy. Thumpy.
Kain's heartbeat grew faster and more powerful as his blood vessels became noticeably visible, and his skin turned red. There was no astral wave coming from Kain's body, but Sonar could feel how the strength of this one kept growing stronger and stronger. The Ether World's races assimilated so much with the wave that they depended on it for all their skills and techniques. A fighting style that did not rely on astral wave or essence wave was preposterous. Yet Kain was about to use one of them to fight against an Atrox Wave champion. Although by this point, calling the young man Kain was inaccurate, as he was the Red King. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 103. 103 The Red King, I. Sonar's breathing accelerated due to the fear and pressure assaulting his mind and heart. Still, he clenched his fists and adopted a martial stance before shouting with resolution.
I am a proud member of the Atrox Immortus race, and you will not.
Sonar did not even manage to finish his sentence before receiving an uppercut that raised his body from the ground. Disbelief appeared in his eyes as he felt the strength in that punch, and for a second, he could swear it was about to rip his head from his shoulders. Before the Atrox could even figure out what was happening, a kick landed on his temple, increasing the might of the brain trauma the uppercut generated and sending him flying away. Sonar crashed against a large tree, making a large indentation on this one. What is happening? Sonar's eyes were confused as he did not understand where that strength came from. Not even when Kain unleashed a 1500% wave burst did his punches reach that level, but now he was not using a single iota of astral wave, yet his attacks were twice stronger. Sonar's battle instincts were still active, and he rose from the ground as fast as possible in order to face the next attack. Sadly, he had not even adopted a battle stance when a red hand grabbed his face. The strength in that grip seared the skin that was not protected by his armor. The only silver lining in that situation was that the fingers did not cover his eyes, allowing Sonar to see the key behind the Red King's power. The Red King held the Atrox's head with his right hand, and then his entire body began to rotate. The rotational movement started from his feet, improved by his waist, and enhanced by his shoulders before harnessing that power into his right arm. His technique increases the body's velocity and acceleration to a shocking level. That, combined with flawless martial skill and outrageous speed of thought, can be converted into talk, allowing him to display a physical strength many times higher than the theoretical limit of his body. Those thoughts crossed Sonar's mind as the Red King used his entire body like a battering ram, shattering the tree behind his back.
Boom.
Despite the pain, Sona's eyes still showed awe as he thought of that technique. It was simply amazing, and since it focused solely on physical enhancement, anyone could use it regardless of their cultivation stage. If a god or titan were to master this technique, they could unleash an even mightier destructive power. The Red King's eyes showed no emotion whatsoever as he dragged the Atrox's body through the ground, while also using this one as a battering ram against every boulder or tree in his path. He did not move away from the toxic lake, running in circles around it. Despite Sona's awe, he was not going just to lie down and let the Red King beat him like a dog. He clenched his teeth and waited for the Red King to raise him from the ground. The Red King did just that, intending to use Sona to break a boulder on his path when the Atrox fired a right hook toward his head. That punch was not only fast but came from a blind spot, and since he raised Sona from the ground, they were extremely close. A smile appeared on Sona's face as he saw his punch about to land. Although the Red King's technique increased strength, it did not seem to improve defense, so he was sure this attack could turn the tables. Sadly for Sona, the Red King dodged that punch easily before slamming this one's head into the ground using all the momentum he had gathered. Sona felt everything blurry, and his mind stopped for a second. However, pain allowed him to regain focus as the Red King rose him again from the ground before connecting a kick on his chest and throwing him more than 3 into the air.
Alright.
Sona yelled in pain as he felt his ribs shattering under the might of that kick, and before he could even take a breath, the Red King appeared in the sky next to him. Even without a solid base where to put his feet, the Red King was able to generate a level of talk and connect a ferocious blow on Sona's solar plexus, shattering all the diaphragm's muscles.
Boom.
Sona crashed into the ground, and a wave of pain and panic assaulted his heart since he could not breathe. As a wave champion, he could spend several minutes without breathing without significant problems, but the feeling was still excruciating. The sound of footsteps coming closer reached Sona's ears, and the terror in his heart only grew stronger. Every shred of fighting will inside him had shattered, and the only thing he wanted to do right now was to escape, but that would not happen. Nothing could stop that monster from killing him. Another kick landed on Sona's chest, making him puke blood and pushing him against a tree where he landed sitting. The Red King stood in front of the Atrox, and he could clearly see the fighting will of this one was gone. However, that changed nothing since he had won this fight before it started. Sona lay there, waiting for death. He barely had any strength left, and nothing he could do or say would save him. However, instead of a finishing blow, what he received was a question.
What is this?
The Red King asked that question as he raised his index finger and released a small stream of astral wave. The confusion in Sona's mind grew stronger as he heard that. Cain showed great mastery over his astral wave and the 4 basic wave arts, but the Red King seemed to have no knowledge whatsoever about it. Sona's confusion mattered very little to the Red King, since this one could not endure the power of his voice.
That is astral wave. It is the energy we astral wave cultivators use to cultivate and grow stronger. It is the pillar of the astral rebirth path of power, and we obtain it after refining the wave, through our rebirth hearts.
Speaking provoked immense pain for Sona, but he could not resist the compulsion that the Red King's voice implanted in his mind.
So that is the name of this world's origin energy. It is surprisingly malleable.
The Red King paused at this point, and his eyes narrowed as a flash of enlightenment emerged in them.
It seems that I can enhance it through my willpower.
When Sona heard that, his entire body began to tremble as he could not believe what he had just heard. There was absolute shock and terror in his eyes when he saw that the stream of astral wave in the Red King's index finger grew stronger.
Monster.
Sona uttered that single word as his mind could not process what was happening. The Red King did not even glance at the Atrox as this one uttered that word and focused solely on the astral wave that was growing stronger as he infused more and more of his willpower into it.
I assume that this is something impressive according to your standards. Explain.
Sona's mind was still in shock, but that mattered little as his eyes lost focus, and he answered the Red King's question.
Channeling the energy wave that is your willpower into your wave means that you are, at the second realm of the ego eternal path of power, mind over wave. For that, your willpower must have reached a level equal to a late wave king, someone with the right to call himself a powerhouse in ether.
The fact he had the power to call himself a powerhouse in this world did not provoke anything in the Red King. In his mind, it was like an ant telling him that he was now the king of ants. Why would he feel proud of such an insignificant accomplishment? The Red King kept sending his willpower into the astral wave stream before eventually stopping.
Too little.
That was all the Red King said before the life wave and the surroundings began to act erratically. Sonar's eyes just regained his focus when he saw how the Red King manipulated the life wave and sent it into the astral wave stream. The Red King kept sending more and more life wave into his astral wave stream until its energy reached an incredible level. He then used that stream to generate a cut on his forehead. Sonar was confused for a moment, but then he saw how the bleeding cut began to open up, and what he saw froze his heart with a level of terror that he did not believe possible. A red eye appeared on the Red King's forehead. Instead of eyelids, it had rows of sharp teeth.
What are you going to do to me?
Sonar's voice made it clear just how terrified he was. He was an Atrox, a race known for their cruelty and sadism, but he was sure that the monster in front of him was even worse. The Red King focused on the Atrox for a moment before giving an honest answer.
I will devour your soul.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 104. 104 The Red King, IV. Fear and panic overwhelmed Sonar's heart when he heard those words, since he knew that the Red King was not exaggerating, and this one would devour his soul. Before Sonar could do anything, the Red King morphed the astral wave he used to create that third eye into a gauntlet that covered his right hand. The Red King's right hand gained phantasmagoric qualities before his fingers pierced the Atrox's head. Those fingers seemed able to phase past the skin and bones and did not even harm the brain as they reached a special place. In the old world, the existence of the soul was widely disputed. Most of the population did not believe in it since, despite their technological and scientific advances, they never found any proof of it. It was only after reaching ether and gaining the power to control the supernatural that the Godslayer humankind began to decipher the mysteries of the soul. The human soul found itself inside the brain, but we were never able to find any trace of it because it was not in the physical plane of existence. It was in a place beyond the three-dimensional space, what some scholars called the fourth dimension. Humans in the old world could not access the fourth dimension, but with the mastery of the wave, the Godslayer humankind achieved that amazing scientific breakthrough. It was a perfect example of how magic and science stopped being opposite concepts and could complement each other. An expression of utter and absolute agony appeared in Sonar's eyes as the Red King's hand reached his soul and began to pull out, dragging it to the physical plane of existence. It was like having all your extremities torn out of your body simultaneously. The Atrox would have killed himself if he had the chance, since the pain was just too much, but there was no way the Red King would allow that. The Red King pulled with more and more strength, and exhaustion began to appear on his face, making it clear that even for him, extracting a soul was an incredibly challenging feat. If it was not for the assistance of the astral wave, the Red King could not have done it. That is why he originally planned to kill Sonar. Finally, after almost 2 minutes, the Red King managed to take Sonar's soul out of the fourth dimension. In his hand, there was a mass of chaotic sky-blue electromagnetic energy. At simple sight, it was not that impressive, but for those who could see its true nature, a soul was one of the most amazing things in the world. Sonar's soul was too weak to act on his own and would disperse in seconds if it wasn't for the Red King's phantom hand's tight grip. The Red King took a deep breath as his third eye focused on Sonar's soul before glowing and unleashing an energy wave. That energy wave was the Red King's willpower, and once it reached Sonar's soul, this one acted instinctively, fighting back. If the Red King were to lose the battle of wills, the backlash he would suffer might drive him into a coma. However, how could Sonar's willpower, which did not even reach the late wave champion level, win against the Red King's, which was mightier than that of a late wave king? After a few seconds, Sona's soul trembled, and a cracking sound emerged from it. The Red King saw that and neared the sky-blue electromagnetic energy to his third eye. The Red King's third eye acted like a ravenous beast as it devoured Sona's soul incredibly fast, not leaving a single iota of it left. Once the third eye devoured the soul, it closed, and the cut in the Red King's forehead vanished. Focus appeared on the Red King's face as he went through a sea of memories. All of Sona's experiences, from birth to death, were open for him. Sona was a young genius, so despite being a wave champion, he was less than 20 years old, making it easier for the Red King to analyze those memories, throwing away the useless and keeping those beneficial for him. The Red King had no idea of the world he woke up in, but now less than 10 minutes later, he understood everything. The different races and factions, the might of those with true power, and what he should be careful of.
Interesting, this world is much more advanced than the one I was born in. That will make it easier for me to grow stronger since I can use their knowledge to my advantage. The strongest life forms have the title of gods and titans. Their power could make them a threat in my current state, so I should not interact with them for the time being.
After taking care of the Atrox and understanding the world he found himself in, the Red King began to analyze his next step. There were still many questions on his mind, with the first being the body he was currently in. The Red King saw the original owner of this body in Sona's recollections, but he had no memory of someone like Cain. That was not the worst part since, other than the first decades in his original world, he remembered nothing else.
If I perished and reincarnated, that could explain the corruption of my memories. I will find the answer in time, and it is better if the world thinks that Cain Lorifer is dead.
The Red King focused on Beals, and after making sure the woman was dead, he turned toward Levi. Another wisp of astral wave emerged from his index finger, and he began to generate a plasma sphere with it. In a moment, it grew more than 2 meters large and had more than enough power to kill a wave champion, much less an unconscious level 3 wave warrior. For the world to think that Cain Lorifer died in the battle against the Atrox wave champion, it was better if all the humans that took part in the fight also perished. The Red King knew that Levi was a close friend of Cain, but why would that affect his decision? Since he took control of this body, Cain Lorifer ceased to exist. Just as the Red King was about to fire the plasma lightning sphere, a flash of golden light appeared in his eyes, provoking immense pain and affecting his senses.
Boom!
The plasma lightning sphere missed its original target and crashed against some trees, obliterating them. The Red King could not care less that Levi survived his attack, since a force that came from inside his body was affecting his mind. Even when he saw an army butchering his entire clan, he felt no rage, but now a sense of overwhelming wrath invaded him. Someone dared to act over his soul, an unforgivable sin in the Red King's mind. The pain grew stronger, and his senses began to shut down one by one. The Red King attempted to fight back, but the golden light was too powerful, and he could not defeat it. Finally, the Red King fell to the ground, and every sense went off, trapping him into complete darkness and silence. That state would drive even the mighty's will into panic and terror, but there were no such emotions on his face.
I don't know who you are, and I don't care why you are doing it. I only want you to know this. Sooner or later, I will free myself, and when that time comes, I will kill everybody that you care about in front of your eyes before sealing your soul inside my mind for all eternity.
Those were the last words the Red King spoke before his red eyes turned green, and he lost consciousness. The aura those eyes began to unleash was no longer of an ancient force of nature, but that of a young man full of heroism. Silence reigned around the toxic lake, but things were not so calm in a unique dimension located inside Cain's brain. Deep inside his soul, in a place so hidden that even the mightiest life forms of ether could never find, there was a massive gate. 2 large stone tables formed the gate inside Cain's soul and had all sorts of phenomena engraved. Nothing in this world could compare to the ancientness of this gate, but that was not the most impressive thing. Hundreds of giant chains made of either black-white lightning or golden-purple flames covered that massive gate, and their power was outrageous, to say the least. If a weak life form stared at those chains, their souls would shatter as their minds could not endure the principles and forces in them. Suddenly, a golden humanoid appeared in front of the massive gate, and a somber expression appeared on his face as he saw the tiny crack in it.
A mere wisp of his consciousness crossed that crack, yet he could unleash that level of strength.
The golden humanoid focused on the crack before sighing. Despite his power, fixing that gate was beyond his capabilities. After a moment, he looked into the distance with a smile.
About time you woke up, brat.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 105. 105 just in time. Cain slowly opened his eyes, and there was confusion in them. However, that was pushed away by a wave of immense pain that covered his entire body. He felt as if every muscle fiber had shattered, and he could not do anything else but stay on the ground, waiting for the pain to disappear. Nevertheless, that was not so easy since dread assaulted his mind when he saw the Atrox right next to him, and even in his state, he could see that this one was still alive. Cain knew he needed to adopt a battle stance, but just staying conscious was challenging, much less fighting. Luckily, he soon heard a voice that allowed him to calm down.
Relax, brat. The Atrox's heart and brain technically work, but his soul is gone, so there is nothing to fear. Even if that was not the case, his injuries were so severe that he could not move.
Apex's voice echoed inside Cain's mind, allowing him to calm down but also filling him with questions. It took a few minutes, but the pain finally diminished to the point he could move and think. Upon a closer look, Cain did see the horrible physical wounds on the Atrox's body, but that mattered very little compared with the fact that despite still being alive, there was no light in his eyes.
Apex, just who had the power to destroy the Atrox's soul.
Cain's understanding of the soul was shallow, but he knew that directly interacting with it required great knowledge and even greater power. There was no one here but him, and he definitely did not have those abilities.
I did it. Your mind was so chaotic that you did not perceive the Atrox when this one rose from the ground after the explosion and attacked you. I took control over your body and fought, before unleashing a special attack and breaking the Atrox's soul.
Cain's eyes widened when he heard that. It came as a shock that Apex could take control over his body, and even more that this one could unleash a power capable of breaking the body and soul of an Atrox Wave champion. However, as Cain analyzed Apex's words, something bizarre happened. His eyes grew emotionless for a second, showing a level of absolute apathy, but also incredible intelligence.
There is something that doesn't quite add up. I have been in danger many times before since we met each other, and I don't remember you intersecting in those. Not to mention that since I was unable to secure my own life, doesn't that mean that I am not worthy of the absolute life form system and you should look for another vessel?
Inside Cain's soul, the golden humanoid's eyes narrowed. He stared at the crack in the gate, and a serious expression appeared on his face before looking away.
I value brotherhood and honor above all things. Your selfless behavior, coming here and risking your life for your friends, showed me your true nature, which is why I decided to go against the rules and save your life. However, that will never happen again. Even if I wanted to, I could not do it.
Apex gave a plausible explanation to Cain while ensuring that this one knew it would not happen again. That explanation made perfect sense for Cain, since it was perfectly aligned with what he had learned from the system's spirit up to this point. Emotions returned to Cain's eyes, and he showed a radiant smile as he was truly happy to have someone like Apex covering his back. However, the word friends make Cain remember something. He looked through the surroundings until he found Beals. Immense pain and sadness assaulted Cain's heart when he saw Beals' body. Unlike before, when those emotions overwhelmed his mind, he allowed the pain to flow this time. He did not hide from the pain, but did not allow it to consume him.
Well done, brat. It is all right to feel pain and sadness when we lose people important to us, but losing ourselves in the grief would be dishonoring their memories. Remember this. A person dies twice. The first is when you give your last breath, and the second is when someone mentions your name for the last time. Mourn her death and overcome your grief, but never forget her. Keep her memory with you, that way she will never truly die.
Cain engraved Apex's words in his mind before using all his strength to rise from the ground and walk toward Beals. He sat by her side and gently caressed her face.
Could I bring her back?
As a reincarnator, Cain was the proof that death was the end. If he could come back from death, why could others not? The truth was that this was not the first time he thought of reviving a person, since there was someone he missed very much, and that would pay anything to have by his side again, his father. Cain had never contemplated the idea out loud before, since he was sure it would be incredibly difficult and did not want to give himself false hopes. But now, as he saw Beal's body lying in front of him, he could not help but ask that question. Apex could read Cain's thoughts and knew he needed to clear things, or else the young man would embark on a dangerous path full of flaws.
It is not so simple. I don't know the rules of the eternal river of the afterlife in this universe, or if there is even a mightier reincarnation system put in place. What I do know is that not even gods or Titan can bring back the dead.
Cain sighed as he heard that, and a sad smile appeared on his face. Gods and titans could destroy old world's continents, yet not even they could revive someone. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, allowing himself to be alone with his thoughts. The golden humanoid in front of the gate saw that and waited patiently. Cain was currently at an inflection point that could affect his cultivation path. After a few minutes, Cain opened his eyes, and a sense of pure determination emerged in them.
I will never forget you, Beals, but I cannot live my life for you. I will grow strong, stronger than everybody, and if I have the chance, I will bring you back. That is a promise.
Apex smiled when he heard that and was extremely pleased. Cain's mentality was perfect for those that cultivated. Never forget your loved ones, but do not allow the dead to dictate your path. Cain showed a gentle smile as he caressed Beal's face one last time before sending her into his space ring. He will return her body to her family, so they can mourn her and give her a proper burial. With that done, Cain was ready to call for assistance when a crushing pressure descended from the sky. He looked up and saw a large, bulky man with short white hair, obsidian skin, and black armor.
Abyssal demon.
Cain immediately recognized the one in the sky as a member of the Infernus demon race. Although he could not truly quantify that man's strength, Cain was sure that there was no way a wave champion could unleash that type of pressure. The abyssal demon focused on the Atrox and was surprised to detect no soul on this one. He looked at the surroundings, but besides the unconscious Levi, there was only Cain.
Did you kill him?
The abyssal demon's voice echoed through the forest. Any wave warrior would have trembled non-stop in front of such a mighty being, but Cain's reaction was nothing like that. Cain laughed with all his strength, surprising the abyssal demon.
Why are you laughing?
Apex's voice appeared inside Cain's mind. Like the abyssal demon, the system spirit was surprised by Cain's attitude.
Because my luck truly sucks.
Cain answered the system spirit's question before rising from the ground and staring at the abyssal demon in the sky.
Yes, I killed him.
Cain's eyes were fearless as he shouted those words. He activated his ego wave and gathered what little astral wave he had left in his right fist. Instead of getting angry, the abyssal demon smiled as he saw Cain's courage.
You are a truly brave brat. What a shame you were born into the human race. Sorry, but you are too talented to be left alive.
The abyssal demon's wave cloak emerged, and he focused most of his astral wave on his right fist.
I will use my true power to attack you, brat. Let this show you that I recognize you as a true warrior.
The abyssal demon flashed forward the next second but did not use his full speed. He moved just fast enough so Cain could also unleash his punch. A fearless smile appeared in Cain's fist as he saw that punch coming his way and counter with his own. He knew the moment both fists touched, his body would burst to pieces, but there were no regrets in his eyes. Just as Cain and the abyssal demon's fists were about to collide, he felt someone grab him by the back and pull him away. Cain's eyes showed the shock assaulting his mind as he saw a tall man with blue hair and a red martial robe counter the abyssal demon's punch. An explosion that shattered the ground and sent trees flying away occurred when the fists collided. Despite the abyssal demon imposing figure, the clash sent him flying away while the blue-haired man did not move a single step.
It seems I made it just in time. Glad you are okay, brat.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 106. 106 It's Over.
Lord Zarak.
Cain was beyond surprised to see Zarak come out of nowhere and send the abyssal demon flying away. He then noticed how the blast blew everything in a 5-meter radius to pieces. The only reason he was fine was the thick layers of incredibly dense astral wave protecting him. Neither Lord Zarak nor the abyssal demon unleashed their full strength, yet they achieved this level of destructive might. A battlefield where they go all out would become a death zone for anyone at the Wave Warrior level, maybe even for weak Wave champions. Cain could not hide his awe as he attempted to measure Zarak's power. The man pulled him out of danger before covering him with a mantle of astral wave and finally countering the abyssal demon's fist. That reaction speed meant that Zarak could move several times faster than the speed of sound. Suddenly Cain's eyes narrowed as he looked into the distance. There was worry on his face, but he calmed when he saw that Levi was fine. Although boulders were covering Levi's body and he was badly wounded, Cain used the pseudo-cellular analysis and knew his vital signs were stable. Zarak only nodded toward Cain once he heard his name before his eyes became incredibly sharp as he focused on the enemy in the sky. The abyssal demon regained control of his body once he rose around 100 meters in the sky. And the first thing he did was unleash the full power of his astral wave.
Boom.
A shock wave emerged from the abyssal demon as he released all of his strength, making it seem like the sky was trembling. Cain's eyes widened as he felt that immense amount of astral wave. If his energy pool was a pond, the abyssal demon's body contained an ocean. The abyssal demon focused on Zarak before his eyes glowed with golden light. Electromagnetic energy emerged from his brain and fused with his astral wave, generating a force field that covered the entire forest. Cain saw the golden-purple force field covering the forest, and he was surprised to know that you could fuse your ego wave and astral wave to do something like that. He was sure there was nothing inside the force field that could hide from the abyssal demon.
Oh, you are alone. I don't know if you are courageous or simply looking down on me. I will admit you are strong, but the only reason you won that last clash was that I barely used a fraction of my power to give that brat a proper death.
The abyssal demon's wave cloak began to burst, generating violent winds with incredible might. He stood in the sky without moving a finger, but his power caused a natural phenomenon similar to an old-world hurricane.
Our cultivations are in 2 different leagues, and there is no way you could face me alone.
Zarak did not move his eyes away from the abyssal demon. There was no fear in his gaze, and he began to smile as he let go of Cain and began to walk forward.
You are incredibly powerful, and if I were to rely on my body and astral wave, my chances of victory are slim to none. However, the astral rebirth path of power is not my main path.
Zarak's eyes began to glow with blue light, and then earthquakes covered the entire forest, shattering the ground beneath his feet. Cain saw everything with shock and amazement. One stood in the sky, and the power in his body generated hurricanes, while the other walked through the earth, and the might of his mind triggered earthquakes. The abyssal demon's face grew solemn as he saw the forest trembling and breaking apart. His calm stance changed as he felt a great danger from the human.
My name is Crollo Sarkin. What is yours? Zarek Valentine.
As soon as Crollo heard that, the caution in his eyes grew even stronger, as did his astral wave's output.
So you are the infamous soul breaker, Zarak. There is a large bounty on your head.
Zarak's smile grew wider as he heard that.
You are also infamous as well, Marquis Sarkin.
When Cain heard that, his heart grew agitated. Although he did not know just how powerful marquises were, he knew they were just beneath dukes, and just like in the Godslayer humankind, the dark race's dukes were supreme powerhouses.
I have heard that you were a highly reclusive individual. I should count myself lucky to have the chance to fight you.
Crollo's eyes glowed with even stronger golden light as his fighting intent exploded.
HMPH, there is no way I could stand by and do nothing when your kind butchered weak and innocent people.
Zarak sneered, and his ego wave burst with even greater strength. When Crollo heard those words, a complicated expression appeared on his face before he finally sighed.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That rule applies to all aspects of existence.
Zarak did not say anything, but understood the hidden meaning behind the abyssal demon's words. Without warning, Zarak's astral wave burst with incredible power, and his ego wave began to materialize around his body. Cain could not see the form Zarak's ego wave took before this one flashed toward the abyssal demon, pushing this 100 meters into the sky.
Boom! Zarak's clash with the abyssal demon generated an explosion that seemed capable of breaking the sky. Despite the distance, the blast's shock wave sent Cain flying away. Cain was able to regain control over his body mid-air and land gently on the ground, but there was still a sense of awe in his heart. He was more than 100 meters away from the explosion's origin, yet he still was sent flying away.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
The explosions grew more distant as Zarak pushed Krollo higher and higher into the sky. The Godslayer human and the abyssal demon moved several times faster than the speed of sound, and each of their movements generated consecutive sonic booms. Cain attempted to follow the fight, but Zarak and Krollo were so far and moved so fast that he could only see the blasts generated by their collisions. He did not attempt to run away since that would be futile. The only place he knew that could resist the might of Krollo was the Imperial Lightning Fort, and there was no way he could reach it before this fight was over. Zarak and Krollo fought for over 2 minutes, generating more than 1,000 sonic blasts all over the sky, until one of them finally flew away. Before Cain could even ask himself about the battle's winner, Zarak appeared by his side. There were all sorts of wounds on his body, and it seemed that the abyssal demon had broken his right arm, but his aura was as strong as ever.
You defeated that abyssal demon.
Cain's voice was full of awe and admiration. Krollo was incredibly powerful, yet Zarak managed to force this one to run away after less than 3 minutes of fighting.
It is not so simple. That man escaped because he knew that remaining here for a long time would immensely decrease his chances of leaving the Gaia continent alive.
Zarak did not move his eyes away from the sky until Krollo's figure vanished. Zarak raised his hand, bringing Levi and the Atrox toward him. The same invisible force grabbed hold of Cain's body. Cain felt that he could use his astral wave and ego wave to fight against it, but he obviously did not do it.
According to my information, there was a woman with you two.
Zarak noticed the sorrow in Cain's eyes as soon as he mentioned Beals and understood what had happened.
I see.
The next second, Zarak rose to the sky alongside the 2 humans and the dead Atrox.
Boom!
A sonic boom emerged from their previous location as Zarak flashed at the speed of sound toward Corin City, bringing everybody with him. For Cain, Levi and Beals, the trip toward the toxic lake took several hours, but Zarak reached the center of Corin City in a matter of minutes, and he would have been faster had he been alone. Corin City faced the wave beast stampede, and thousands of beasts surrounded it. Cain could count more than 10,000 of them, and on the northeast battlefield, there was a large panther-like beast with arcs of lightning covering its body.
Boom!
Suddenly a shock wave spread across the sky as Zarak unleashed the full power of his astral wave and ego wave. When that incredible power appeared in the sky, beasts and humans stopped their fight and all focused on it. Zarak took 100 obsidian needles from his space ring before reinforcing each with his astral wave. The blue light in his eyes grew even stronger as he waved his hand, sending them toward the wave beasts on the ground. Cain had a perfect vision of the several battlefields spread around Corin City from his position in the sky. He was utterly shocked seeing hundreds of wave beasts fall dead to the ground each second. In less than half a minute, all of the wave beasts, including the Stampede's leader, were dead.
It's over, Zarak spoke calmly as if that massacre was nothing in his sight. A monstrous red light emerged in his eyes as Cain saw the more than 10,000 wave beasts' death. I will have that power. The end of Book 1, The Hidden Saga of the Red King. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 107. 107 Soul Breaker Zarak. The state of Corin City changed drastically from one day to the other. Yesterday, warriors fought ferociously against an endless horde of wave beasts, but now there was no more fighting. Soldiers were still busy, but their current job was dissecting and storing the thousands of carcasses across the battlefield. Wave beasts were heavy and had tough skin and muscles, but the soldiers were more than happy with this job as it was safe, and they could keep a considerable amount of the meat for themselves. While they did their job, The soldiers looked toward the sky above Korin City with awe and admiration. Their eyes could not leave the floating structure made with the broken pieces of some buildings floating 100 meters above the ground. As for the way that structure did not fall to the ground, that was something beyond the realm of a wave warrior's comprehension. What the soldiers knew was that inside that floating building was the man responsible for killing more than 10,000 wave beasts in less than 30 seconds. Major Luma was in charge of taking care of the aftermath, and she was currently looking at the Lightning Panther with a complicated expression. This late, wave champion beast had been a fierce rival and almost killed her more than once, but now it lay there dead. Zarak's obsidian needles were so fast that they took the Lightning Panther by surprise. The late wave champion beast did not even know how it died.
Major Luma.
Razman appeared by Luma's side the next second and gave a slight bow.
Your report.
Luma was not in the mood for a small chat and went straight to the point.
Yes, Major. We have already secured everything in a radius of 5,000 meters around Korin City. Although some weak level 1 or 2 wave beasts are still around, their numbers do not even reach the hundreds. We can say with certainty that the stampedes are over.
Luma nodded when she heard that, and she was able to relax a little. Although Zarak killed every wave beast, including the stampede leader, there was always the chance that a new horde could be hiding in the forest, waiting for the right moment to strike. Luckily for Luma and the soldiers, it seemed that was not the case, and things were finally over.
Since the battles are over, it is time to start with the reconstruction efforts. Our first goal is to raise new walls around the city's periphery and fix the defensive mechanisms. Once that is over, we will let the civilians out of the underground tunnels so they can assist us from that point on.
It was clear that Luma had a lot of experience with the military, as her commands followed the protocols flawlessly.
Yes, Major.
Razman bowed again, but just as he was about to leave, his eyes focused on the floating building, and he could not hide the curiosity in his eyes. Luma knew that Razman had questions. Since they were in a time of peace, she nodded toward the man, indicating she could ask.
Major, I saw the cadets Levi and Kane floating in the sky, but who was that man with them that was able to carry on a massacre with a simple movement of his hand?
Major Luma remained silent for a moment. She also stared at the floating building, and her eyes glowed with golden light, showing her the blue fosse that held that structure in the sky.
In the power ladder of the Godslayer Humankind Empire, the one at the peak is the current emperor, who earned that title less than 1,000 years ago thanks to his undisputed might. Beneath him are the 72 sector dukes, extremely powerful titans with a strength capable of crushing entire cities with their bare hands. The collapsing lightning duke is among the top 10.
Razman made sure to put all his attention on Major Luma's words. He knew her background was impressive, allowing her to see the power ladder of the Godslayer Humankind Empire much better than a simple vice-captain like him.
Beneath each sector duke there are 9 pillars. They are supposed to be the pillars that will hold the sector in place if the duke dies. They are the strongest warriors of each sector, and their combined might allows them to butcher gods. The 9 pillars of the collapsing lightning sector are said to be the most brutal of all. Instead of guardians, powerhouses across the empire consider them killers.
Luma made a small pause as she remembered something before carrying on.
Soul Breaker Zarak is the youngest to have ever become one of the 9 pillars of the collapsing lightning sector, and he did it by.
Razman grew confused as he saw Luma stop speaking, and that feeling grew stronger when the woman's face grew pale. Luma could not carry on as she saw 2 blue eyes looking at her coldly. Only she could see them and no one else, since they were not really there, but were an illusion. Come.
That word echoed inside Luma's mind, and her eyes lost focus before she rose to the sky and headed into the floating building at full speed. Only once she was inside the building did Luma's eyes regain her focus. She was confused for a moment, but then she understood what had just happened, and rage appeared on her face. Being forced to do something against her will was incredibly humiliating for her.
HMPH, you should consider yourself lucky, little girl. I am someone that values his privacy. If it were not for the merits of your grandfather, I would have trapped your mind into a nightmare for daring to even think of revealing my secrets.
Luma focused on the voice's origin and saw Zarak sitting on a broken throne. The blue light in his eyes made her feel she was in the presence of a giant, making it hard to breathe.
I will never happen again, Lord Zarak.
Luma shouted those words, and it was clear there was fear in her eyes. Life on the battlefield washed away her fear of death, but she knew that being trapped in one of Zarak's nightmares was much worse than that. Zarak did not say anything else before waving his hand and sending the Atrox's body toward Luma.
Analyze him and give me an evaluation.
Luma was confused, but she did not dare to refute that command, and she sent her ego wave into the Atrox. Shock immediately appeared in her eyes when she discovered that the Atrox's mind and heart were still working, but there were no signs of any ego coming from this one. Something like that could happen if someone broke the Atrox's soul. Luma glanced at Zarak, but she did not dare to slack off and began to analyze the wounds on the body. The more she saw, the more confused she grew. After around 10 minutes, Luma's ego wave left the Atrox's body.
What is your evaluation?
Luma did not understand the reason behind Zarak's task, but she answered honestly.
This male Atrox was a wave champion. He has 2 sets of wounds on his body. The first and the oldest seem to have been left by a late or peak wave champion. As for the second set, they are no more than a day old, and the one that did it had the strength of a wave warrior. His condition is so severe that it would only have been a matter of time before he perished. However, the true killer is the one that broke the Atrox's soul.
Zarak nodded after hearing that, and then he snapped his fingers. Luma felt a slight pain in her brain, and the next second she saw 2 capsules on Zarak's left and right. It took a moment, but she understood that she had been under an illusion all this time. Who knew what would have happened if Zarak had not liked her evaluation? She took a deep breath and calmed her mind before focusing on the capsule on the left. In it, she saw Levi floating in a green liquid with red streams. A flash of envy appeared in her eyes since she knew just how valuable that liquid was. However, her eyes widened as she stared at the capsule on the right. In it, she saw Cain, and this one floated in a liquid that was bloody red. It was so thick that she could almost not see the cadet's body. Luma came from a very wealthy background, but even she could not help but feel awe at the price of the blood-red liquid covering Cain's body.
These 2, along with another cadet named Beals, were responsible for neutralizing the Atrox wave champion. When I arrived, the enemy could no longer move. Although I am responsible for destroying the Atrox's soul, the trio deserves the merit of defeating him. Hand over your report to your superior today, and make sure to write everything you have heard and seen. Zarak said nothing else before signaling Luma to leave. Luma was full of questions, but she knew there would be no answer for her, so she bowed to Zaka before leaving the building. As soon as Luma left the floating building, this one began to crumble, and boulders weighing several tons started to fall to the ground. Luckily, a blue foss guided their path, ensuring they harmed no one and nothing. Luma saw how Zarak rose to the sky, along with the 2 capsules, and the Atrox's body, before flashing toward the Imperial Lightning Fort. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 108. 108 Hellblazer Family I. Book 2, The Rise of the Blood Lightning Genius. Levi slowly opened his eyes, and they had a deep sense of confusion. However, a wave of panic pushed that away as he found himself submerged in a green liquid with red streams. Drowning had an extremely powerful psychological effect on all terrestrial life forms, so Levi's reaction was not that odd. Levi calmed down very fast after realizing he could still breathe. Breathing underwater seemed far-fetched, but it was nothing for the current scientific development of the Godslayer humankind empire. A few moments after he woke up, the capsule that held Levi began to drain the liquid before opening itself, allowing him to get out. The confusion in Levi's eyes only grew stronger as he left the capsule. The last thing he remembered was fighting the Atrox before an explosion sent him flying away, and he lost consciousness. As he attempted to figure out what had happened, Levi began to analyze his body, and surprise appeared in his eyes. Not only were all his wounds gone, but he felt better than ever before in his life. Levi could almost not believe it when he began circulating his astral wave and realized he had already entered level 4. The higher the level, the more time it would take to advance. Levi had been at level 3 for less than 2 months, yet he had already reached level 4 and was reaching the peak of that level. An even greater sense of wonder assaulted Levi's mind when he noticed the luster in his skin and bald head and immediately figured out he had gone through another session of marrow washing. Levi was just getting used to the refinements on his body when a sense of utter shock assaulted him. It was hard to say with certainty, but he felt a change in his bloodline as if this one had grown stronger. Many factors determined the strength of a bloodline, but the most important ones were origin and purity. When one spoke about the origin, they referred to the root of your bloodline. If its source was a wave beast whose power equaled a titan or god, it made sense that the benefits it granted would be superior to those of a beast that could only match a wave champion. As for purity, it alluded to the density of the bloodline. The farther you were from the source and the weaker your parents were, the lower the purity of the bloodline inside your body would be, and vice versa. Levi knew that while the bloodline inside his body had an incredibly powerful origin, the purity was low due to one of his parents. However, now he felt that the capsule had partially fixed that flaw.
You finally woke up. You were in the recovery capsule for 15 days, not bad.
Levi adopted a battle stance as he focused on the voice and saw a beautiful woman with golden hair and blue eyes walking toward him. He did not know who she was, and while he was glad for the effect of the capsule, there was no way he would lower his guard in a situation like this. The woman showed nothing and kept walking until she stood before Levi. She waved her hand, taking a blue martial robe from her space ring.
My name is Abin, the personal assistant of Lord Zarak. He commanded that I should bring you to him the moment you woke up, so let's go. I will answer your question on the way.
Levi had already heard of Zarak from Cain and knew that the man was a big shot in the army. Although he was still cautious, refusing did not seem like a choice, so he put the blue martial robe on and walked with Abin.
What happened to my friends?
That was the first question that came from Levi's mouth, and Abin immediately answered it.
Cain Lorifer is healing in a recovery capsule just like you were. As for Beel's Egon, she perished in battle.
Levi smiled as he heard that first part, but when it came to Beel's fate, his body trembled and he stopped moving. Abin turned toward Levi and waited for this one. She was also a soldier and knew the feeling of losing a comrade for the first time. A sorrowful expression appeared on Levi's face. He, Cain, and Beels were ready to die when they faced that Atrox, but it was still very painful to know that one of the first friends he made in his life was gone forever.
This world is ruthless.
Levi sighed as he uttered those words and continued walking. It was when they were about to reach a teleportation matrix that Levi spoke again.
What happened to my body?
Levi was smart enough to understand the changes had to do with the recovery capsule and the green liquid with green streams. However, that was far from enough to satiate his curiosity. Just like before, Abin answered Levi's question with speed and efficiency.
Recovery capsules can monitor your vital signs and help your healing. However, the true reason for your improvements was the C-grade blood solution and Lord Zarak's hypnosis.
Abin knew that her words generated more doubts in Levi, so she continued.
A blood solution is a special fluid used to treat wounds and nurture the body of life forms. They are fundamental in the process of limb and organ regeneration. C-grade blood solutions were meant to help Wave Champion, so your body and Rebirth Heart had all the energy they could use until reaching their saturation point. Of course, the fact you had the energy at your disposal did not mean you could use it. Luckily for you, Lord Zarak used his power to put your mind and body into a state of embryonic breathing.
Before Levi even had to ask what Abin referred to with embryonic breathing, she gave him an accurate description.
Lord Zarak reactivated the electromagnetic circuitry you used to have as a fetus, allowing your entire body to draw energy from the surroundings at a cellular level. A high-grade blood solution plus a deep state of embryonic breathing can help you stimulate your potential and push your body to its true peak. That is your current state now.
Levi was genuinely amazed by what he had just heard. Being able to provide so much help to someone made it seem that Zarak had extraordinary supernatural powers. However, Levi was a little worried about all that help. He knew there were no free meals in this world and had no idea what Zarak would want from him. As if being able to read Levi's mind, Abin's next words calmed down the cadet.
You don't have to worry. Although the C-grade blood solution and embryonic breathing can be considered great lucky chances for Wave warriors, they are not that important for Lord Zarak. He said that you could take them as a reward for defeating that Atrox Wave champion.
Levi nodded, and although there were still some concerns, there was not much he could do about it. He got in the teleportation matrix along with Abin, and they both vanished the next second. The next thing Levi saw was a massive room with skulls and weapons hanging from the walls. Suddenly, his eyes burst with coldness and killing intent as he saw 4 people with red robes engraved with volcanoes. 3 of them were middle-aged men with fiery red eyes. A hood covered the face of the lost one, and this one stood behind the others. The one at the head of the group was a bald man, and when he saw the killing intent on Levi's face, he showed a nasty smile.
It has been a long time since we saw each other, young master. I don't understand why you show such animosity to your old uncle Merak.
The middle-aged man spoke mockingly, and there was not a single ounce of respect in his voice. Levi's eyes burned with even greater wrath as he heard Merak's words, but he felt Abin's gaze urging him to keep moving. He walked forward until he stood to the left of Zarak's throne, staring directly at those men with volcano robes. Zarak's eyes moved between Levi and the group. Even a blind man like him could see the immense hatred between the 2 parties. Yet his face showed no concern at all.
Now that all the parties are present, you can state why you came here in such a hurry.
Zarak spoke calmly, and there was even a trace of boredom on his face. It seemed that he did not care about anything that was happening. Unlike the nasty smile Merak gave to Levi, he adopted an extremely respectful and severe expression as he turned toward Zarak.
Yes, Lord Zarak. We came here to bring Levi Hellblazer back to his home so he could enroll in Hellblazer University.
Levi's eyes widened with shock and dread. He knew very well what the Hellblazer family thought of someone like him, so nothing good would happen if he left the Imperial Lightning Fort. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 109. 109 Hellblazer Family, Aye.
There seems to be a problem with your words. Cadet Levi enrolled in the Collapsing Lightning Military Academy, and there is still half a year on his mandatory service. He cannot leave, and you cannot take him unless you want to break the laws and defy the authority of the Imperial Lightning Fort.
Zarak's eyes began to glow with blue light as he expressed that last part, generating immense pressure on the Merak and the others. That is right. I am part of the Imperial Military Force now. Even if I am just a cadet, I am under their rules and protection, and not even dukes would dare to defy their authority, as that would mean defying the Emperor.
Levi's heart calmed, and a small smile appeared on his face. Nevertheless, Levi immediately understood that things would not be so easy when he saw that Merak managed to stay calm under Zarak's pressure and showed him a cold smile.
The Hellblazer family would not do something so impolite as to defy the rules of the Lightning Imperial Fort. Actually, young Master Levi had wanted to enter Hellblazer University, but his merits and talent were not high enough. He sent many letters during the past few months stating that desire. We have ignored them, but his recent accomplishments proved his might, so the university made a special place for him. Liar.
Merak had just finished speaking when Levi shouted, full of rage. His choice of entering the military had nothing to do with his inability to enter a university, and he certainly never sent a message stating that desire.
Young Master, how rude of you to call me a liar, especially when I have proof that supports my words.
Merak kept smiling as he sent a folder to Zarak and Levi through his AI chip. Zarak showed nothing as he went through the folder, but shock appeared on Levi's face. In it, there were letters and audio files from Levi to Hellblazer University begging them to give him a spot. They were marked as sent from his AI chip, and the voice in the audio files was an exact match to his. Levi knew they were fake, but he could not prove it. He had zero talent when it came to hacking.
Even if Cadet Levi was desperate to enter Hellblazer University, that does not mean he could leave the Collapsing Lightning Military Academy.
Zarak did not question the authenticity of the letters and audio files, and only stated a fact. Levi was also aware of that, but he understood they would definitely have something more hidden under their sleeve if they went through all this trouble. Merak's cold smile only grew wider as he sent a second folder to Zarak and Levi. Disbelief appeared on Levi's face as he read the letter inside the folder, and even Zarak showed some surprise. They saw a letter from the Collapsing Lightning Logistics Department stating Levi Hellblazer's transfer to Hellblazer University. In the letter, there was Levi's digital signature, meaning that he had asked for this, and it was dated a day before he fell unconscious battling with the Atrox Wave champion.
We used the correct channels for something so sensitive as a transfer in the middle of the year. Young Master Levi communicated with the officer in charge and went through all the procedures using his AI chip. We came in such a hurry because we could not contact him, but it seems that young Master is perfectly fine.
Marek looked at Levi, and the smile on his face only grew nastier, as if telling the young man that there was nothing he could do. Levi was having a hard time understanding what was happening. He knew the Hellblazer family was powerful, but he never thought they could falsify so much information and find a way to bring him out of the Imperial Military Academy without breaking any rule.
I find nothing wrong with this transfer order. Besides, according to this, you spoke with someone in the Imperial Lightning Logistics Department 16 days ago.
Zarak's voice was calm, as if everything that happened had nothing to do with him.
It is false. I have never contacted anyone in the logistics department, and much less expressed my desire to leave the collapsing Lightning Military Academy.
Levi shouted with rage. He could not keep calm when something so outrageous was happening to him.
Young Master, it is too late to change your mind. The logistics department has already emitted your transfer order, and you must leave with us immediately. If you refuse, we have the authority to make you comply.
Marek's voice was full of mockery, and it was clear how little he thought of Levi. Levi clenched his fist as he stared at Marek. He knew he could not win against the middle-aged man, but refused to go down without a fight.
Do you have any proof that this is false?
Levi heard Zarak's question and turned to this one before shaking his head. He had no way of proving the Hellblazer family scheme.
Since the cadet had nothing to say, I would like to ask a few questions before you leave. Of course, Lord Zarak.
Marek showed a smile toward Zarak as he bowed. Initially, he was afraid that the collapsing lightning pillar would interfere, but it seemed he was just being paranoid.
The questions, I have a not for someone currently in this room.
Zarak's words confused Levi and the members of the Hellblazer family, but he just waited quietly, not offering any explanation for his actions. After 5 minutes of waiting, the teleportation matrix in the room glowed, and the one that appeared was a man wearing a military uniform. When the man reached the room, there was a confident expression on his face, but the moment he saw Levi and the Hellblazer family members, all that smugness vanished. What replaced it was a sense of dread. The man seemed to want to jump back into the teleportation matrix, but an invisible force grabbed his body and brought him toward Zarak. Murak was about to step forward when he saw that, but he stopped before doing it. There was no way he could interfere with someone so powerful as Zarak, and there was a clear apprehension on his face. As soon as the man in military attire saw Zarak's blue eyes, his entire body began to tremble, and his face grew deadly pale. Levi frowned as he did not understand what was happening. Who is that man, and why did Murak and the others act like that? Something bad for Murak was good for him, but Levi did not dare to lower his guard.
Brat, have you ever seen this man before?
Levi was confused by Zarak's question. He saw the pleading gaze in the man, but there was no way he would lie in a situation like this.
I have never seen him.
Zarak's eyes grew cold as he heard that, and the force that held the man in place began to exert even more strength.
How odd. This man's name is Frederick Loron, an officer in the Imperial Lightning Logistics Department. According to the transfer order, you spoke with him 16 days ago, and it was a video call, so how could you have never seen him before?
Enlightenment appeared in Levi's eyes as he heard that, and a radiant smile appeared on his face. Murak and the others were worried because Frederick was their inside man who plotted with them to generate that transfer order under false information. In essence, Frederick Loron was a traitor, working for the Hellblazer family and plotting to harm a cadet from the collapsing Lightning Military Academy. There was only one way in which the Imperial military force treated traitors. Frederick knew there was no way someone like him could trick Zarak, so he threw another pleading gaze, this time to the Hellblazer family. Marek would have preferred if Frederick died before saying a single word, but it was clear that things would not end so cleanly, which is why he interfered.
Lord Zarak, we should not discuss matters like this in the open. It would be best if you consider the bigger picture and give some face to the people we represent.
Marek did not have the power to influence someone like Zarak, so he wanted to put some pressure on this one by mentioning his background. Levi clenched his fists when he heard that. This experience had proven that while the military's rules and codes could help him, they were far from enough to guarantee his safety. He was worried that Zarak would cave into Marek for fear of offending the Hellblazer Duke. It was at that point that Levi noticed that Abin, who had not said a word or expressed any emotion this entire time, shook her head and stared at Marek with some pity. Before Levi could even wonder the reason for Abin's pity, Zarak raised his index finger and generated a small orb of revolving water before shooting it. Everything happened in less than a second, and what occurred next were screams. Marek screamed in agony as that small orb of water landed on his right shoulder, destroying the muscles and bones and severing his arm. Terror appeared in the eyes of the other two middle-aged men from the Hellblazer family. None of them could have stopped an attack like that.
Keep screaming, and the next one will land in your jaw. Zarak's voice was eerie cold as he generated a second orb of revolving water. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 110. 110 Hellblazer Family, I.
Keep screaming, and the next one will land in your jaw.
Zarak's voice was eerie cold as he generated a second orb of revolving water. Marek trembled with fear and knew that Zarak was not lying. He clenched his teeth with all his strength and stopped screaming, but the look on his face made it clear just how much agony he was in. Zarak did not care about Marek and turned toward Frederick with coldness. The blue light in his eyes grew even stronger as he proceeded to speak with a tone of voice that carried an extremely powerful intent.
The transfer order was dated 16 days ago. When did you really make it?
Frederick's eyes lost focus as he heard Zarak's voice and began to speak calmly.
I generated that transfer order 2 days ago under the order of Marek Hellblazer.
It was only after answering that question that Frederick's eyes returned to normal. Absolute terror appeared in them as he knew he had admitted his crime. Marek showed even greater terror. Still, he did not dare to interrupt Zarak's interrogation, no matter how much it compromised him.
Tell me your relationship with the Hellblazer family.
Frederick could not resist the power in Zarak's voice, and his eyes again lost focus and answered the question with complete honesty.
I have been under the service of the Hellblazer family for almost 7 months. They enticed me with immense wealth and gave me intel that could help my career. Up to this point, I have only provided logistics information regarding the Imperial Lightning, Fort's resources and our forces. The situation with Cadet Levi is the first time Marek asked me to interfere directly with any collapsing Lightning Military Academy member.
Frederick's eyes regained focus, and the terror in them only grew stronger. Everybody already knew he had been a double agent of the Hellblazer family for over half a year. The expression of Marek and the other two middle-aged men from the Hellblazer family was not any better. Not only was it clear they could not take Levi with them, but they had just lost an agent inside the Imperial Lightning Fort.
Lord Zarak, have mercy. My actions never harmed anybody. Even now Cadet Levi is fine. Please, I beg you.
Frederick begged for his life with tears in his eyes. He was so terrified that it seemed he would sully himself at any moment. Zarak showed no emotion other than coldness as he continued with the interrogation.
Do you have any information about any other spy, or is there any accomplice to your deeds? No, I have always worked alone. The risk of someone revealing my identity as a spy from the Hellblazer family was too high.
Zarak nodded, and the coldness in his eyes diminished. He even showed a small smile. Frederick found that smile extremely relaxing, and the terror overflowing his heart began to diminish.
You beg me for your life, declaring that you have never harmed anyone, but you are smart enough to understand what would happen to the cadet once he left.
Zarak's voice was calm, but a force that made the entire room tremble manifested. The newfound calm in Frederick's heart shattered the next second, and his eyes widened as he felt the force grabbing his body begin to exert a monstrous strength.
Lord Zarak, I beg you.
Frederick screamed as his bones shattered before his body exploded like a balloon full of blood. That scene shocked the members of the Hellblazer family, and even Levi, who had no love for the man, was surprised by that savagery.
The reason soldiers can have such an immense trust in the military is that they know that any betrayal to your brothers and sisters would be punished with absolute brutality. If I allowed people like him to prosper, cadets would never call the Imperial Lightning Fort their home.
Zarak spoke those words to Levi, making the cadet understand the true might of the Imperial military force. Despite the Hellblazer family going through so much trouble, they still failed miserably.
I understand.
Levi said nothing else, but the sharp light in his eyes made it clear he had engraved Zarak's words in his mind. Zarak nodded at the cadet before turning toward the Hellblazer family, and the smile on his face grew wider.
Since you dare to put a spy in the Imperial Lightning Fort, I think you should receive the same treatment as him.
Marek and the other two middle-aged men grew pale when they heard that, and absolute terror invaded them when they saw the bloody pulp that was once Frederick.
You cannot kill us. We are under the protection of the Hellblazer Duke.
Marek shouted, trying to regain some courage by remembering his background. Zarak stopped smiling as he heard that and began to look around the room before focusing on Marek again.
I know that I am blind, but my perception is one of the things I am most proud of. To think that the mighty Hellblazer Duke could enter my residence without me knowing it. I am amazed at your Grace's abilities.
Marek was confused, and the terror did not allow his mind to work well, so he just answered by instinct.
He is not with us.
Zarak showed a cold and cruel smile as he turned toward Marek.
If he is not here, then how will he protect you from me?
Zarak was mocking Marek for thinking he could use the name of a man hundreds of millions of kilometers away. The blue light in his eyes burst with power, and it seemed he was ready to kill all the Hellblazer family members. At that moment, the person at the back of the group, whose face was covered by a hood and who did not say a word this entire time, walked forward. That young man took his hood, revealing a handsome face with jet black hair and eyes that seemed to glow with embers of flames. The light in his eyes was not the result of the ego wave, but the power of his bloodline. Levi could not hide his shock when he saw that young man. He knew just how high that person's position was in the Hellblazer family and could not comprehend why someone like him would be in a place like this, trying to force him back to the Hellblazer sector. The young man did not even bother to glance at Levi and only focused on Zarak. He showed a calm smile despite the immense danger in which he found himself.
Lord Zarak, allow me to introduce myself. I am Magnus Hellblazer, son of Gabriel Hellblazer and grandson of Azazel Hellblazer, Duke of the Hellblazer sector.
Zarak was a little surprised to see that the young man could keep such composure in his presence. He did not retract his power, but allowed this one to continue speaking.
Lord Zarak, you already killed our man on the inside and punished one of my subordinates for his recklessness. If you allow us to leave now, I am sure my grandfather will send a token of his appreciation. Considering the current state of the Empire and the events that will happen soon, I am sure Lord Zarak knows that generating animosity with the Hellblazer sector would only make things harder.
Magnus spoke with a calm voice, his eyes going from the bloody pulp that was once Frederick to Marek's bleeding shoulder. He was very eloquent, stating the benefits of ending this peacefully. Zarak's smile became more natural after hearing Magus's words.
The one that pulls the strings finally speaks. You are right that this is certainly not the time to sow bad will.
Marek and the other two middle-aged men from the Hellblazer family were about to relax, thinking that Magnus had handled things. However, the next second, they saw how the coldness returned to Zarak's face, and his eyes burst with even stronger blue light.
But so what? What will you do if I want to ignore the bigger picture and kill you?
Despite the imminent threat of death and the feeling of a force ready to crush him to a pulp, Magnus' smile did not vanish, nor did the calm in his heart.
There is nothing I can do to stop you, but my death will trigger a series of catastrophic events that would be problematic even for you, Lord Zarak. That is not a threat but a plain fact.
Magnus's voice showed no vacillation, and he had absolute confidence in his words. Zarak's eyes did not leave the young man for a long time before the power of his mind vanished from the room. The coldness in his face disappeared, and he began to laugh.
Ha, not bad. It seems that the Hellblazer family found itself a good heir. However, I will tell you something, if you go after him, the only destiny that awaits you is a horrible death.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Storyfy grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.